Here we go. My ears are ringing, and you can kind of feel the vibration from it. Hey, welcome to the Ozzstar Cars channel. On today's fun project, I've got a 2017 F-150 behind me here. And what we did recently is installed an air horn. All right, let's get to the juice of the system here. So, under our positive terminal, now, mind you, when all this wiring was done, the negative terminal was disconnected. That's very important. We don't want any accidental fireworks, so to speak. This truck has, as I mentioned, if I haven't already, an amp in it, which is a high voltage, and that's this line coming in, so you may not see that on your truck. But regardless, it all ties into this terminal, and these terminals, these eyelets were all soldered in, and there's heat shrink on there. But so here's our two that we installed, and these are inline fuses. Now we've got them wire tied on, but these caps come off, and I labeled them. One has a 5 amp fuse, and the other one here has a, hopefully you can see that, a 35 amp fuse, okay? So the 5 amp is for our front horns, our solenoid circuit, which is our horn switch to the solenoid at the horn, and that's it. That's all it powers. Now, I did not install a relay in the front circuit, and here's the reason being. The front solenoid uses very little amperage, first of all, and this is a momentary kind of deal. So technically, they tell you that that 2-gallon air compressor will blow this horn for like 4 to 5 seconds or something, Scott. So in reality, from, testing it, it will go longer than that, but it's not long enough. Let's say it goes 10 seconds or 20 seconds. It's not long enough to cause that much current flow where the switch would overheat. So basically, normally if we had a lot of amperage, you would not want to install that circuit like we did here. Let's say, for example, to the back to the compressor. We definitely have a relay, and I'll be explaining that to you. So the relay has a high not a high voltage, it's all 12 volts, but a high amperage on one side and a low signal on the other side. And by doing that, we don't have to worry about melting the switch. That's where I'm going with this. Those switches or that wiring can get extremely hot. If you have, let's say, a pair of fog lamps or something you're wiring and that's going to draw some amperage, you want to have a relay, okay? I contacted hornblasters directly, and I'll talk to the camera on this one so you guys can see my face because I'm for real. When I called them, ooh boy, let's go over here. Where are you, Scott? You still hiding? He doesn't want to get involved with this part. Here's the deal. So I'm going to be honest with you guys and right up front that the wiring schematics for this particular horn blasters was poor. It's not very detailed. And the unit itself seems to be very well made. The components look good. The kit is nice. Comes with some wiring and stuff like that. But as far as the electrical part, it's very vague, is how I'm going to put it. When I say poor, I mean vague. And if you don't have electrical experience, right, Scott?
That'll be me.
So then he calls me. So that's why I was here. But and beside the fact that 2 guys doing this job is going to be a whole lot easier for you than 1 guy, especially when you're fishing airlines and all that stuff through. But anyhow, the schematics, and that's why I want to show you this video here today. If you're watching this, you're going to put it in. I'm going to make it easier for you. I'm by no means an electrical engineer. I know a little bit about electricity, and I'll share what I know with you. But I called hornblasters and talked to somebody in technical department there. By the way, their hold music is fantastic. If you know who Bubba the Love Sponge is, you gotta just call them to listen, even if you're not buying this thing and installing it. It's entertaining in itself. But and I explained this to them, and I said, do we need a relay for this solenoid for the front horn? And I was told I didn't. I kind of already thought of that, premeditated in my head, knowing that it was low amperage. I have not put an amp clamp on it. I could just to prove it, but I'm sure it's less than 1 amp, okay? So we're not worried about anything overheating there. For that compressor in the back, whether you wire it the way we did or you just hot wire it right to the battery, you're going to want a relay, definitely 100%. The wiring is a 10 gauge. It transfers a lot of amperage. You want a thick wire Up front, we used, what was it, 20 gauge wire? 18 gauge wire. So I want to show you the wiring setup for the solenoid for the horn itself. Now right here, you saw the 5 amp. So we have a positive line, you know, there's one going right to the battery terminal here, through the fuse and out, and that wire runs along the firewall inside the cab to the switch, and then there's a wire that goes from the switch to the solenoid. Now here I'm pointing to where the other wire coming out of the solenoid attaches to the firewall, and this is our ground side, so that's the ground wire. So now I want to discuss getting the power back to the compressor. So this is our 35 amp circuit, just same thing as the other one. We have a terminal going from hot wire, 10 gauge wire, from the terminal through the fuse down into this orange wire, which you could see goes into this loom right here. So we did loom all that stuff. We fed it down, very similar, but we're on the passenger side to like the airline was on the driver's side. Very similar, fed it down, wire tied it. I'm gonna show you that in a second. Now this is just getting that power to the compressor. This is not to the switch yet. And this will all make sense when I go over it with you on the, on the board. So here is our loom that we made up. We've just slipped the wire right in there. Now this one coming out of the cab is ours. We kind of wide it. That is for the signal wire, and I'm going to show you that. That goes into the fuse box in just a second. And that comes along the chassis. And let me show you where we went into the box, into the bed. You see how that's all tied up nice and tight and protected. And let me get up under the bed. Bear with me. Okay, so this is the loom here, okay, that we just saw, and then you saw that plug in the back right corner. That's where this goes in, and I can't get that on film, but it's behind this plastic piece right here. Now the red wire, that's a 10 gauge wire. That is actually our ground to the compressor. Like I say, the color doesn't matter. Let me follow or chase you over to that ground point that we went to. Keep in mind this box or this body is aluminum, and aluminum is not the best grounding location. You really want to go to the steel, to the chassis. We went over across the top of the chassis, right across that little gap right there, over, let me get you on film there, right through there, right across, just wire tied it right across here, and over to the left rear of the box on the driver's side. So this is a factory chassis ground point. And I chose this because that way we didn't have to run another one all the way up from the front engine compartment where I just showed you guys those grounds. And this is to save time and also to save money on wire. So here's our terminal, and that's our factory ground. I forget what size this was, like a 10mm bolt. Backed it out, put an eyelet on there, boom, right in, she's good to go. So you saw how the ground wire went back to that point. Now you want to use a 10 gauge wire there because this compressor is pulling that amperage, and your ground is just as important as your powers.
One of the things that you may want to talk about, Glenn, is one of the things that I took notice of was every time that we made any kind of adjustment whatsoever, we added a switch, we added a ground wire, we added a new connection, the continuity was checked every single time an adjustment was made. Just wanted to make note of that. That's a good point you bring up, because as we were running these circuits, in order to, let's say we had a bad connection or something like that, right? We want to, we're checking the progress as we went along. So that way, if there was a failure point, we would kind of know where it was before it happened, just to help you out. Now, you guys know that voltage drop testing is the way to do it. Obviously, we didn't have any power circuit connected, so we couldn't do a voltage drop test at that point. So the ohm meter was our friend, just to make sure the wire didn't have any breaks. Now, yes, the wire could still have breaks. Keep this in mind. Maybe you don't have that much electrical engineering. 90% of that wire could have a break or a crack in it, and you're still going to get continuity. So keep that in mind. One strand,
isn't going to run a 25 amp compressor. But anyway, that is a good point. So I want to tell you guys where we got the control power. It's a 5 amp circuit to that power pressure switch that's on the compressor. And inside here on the passenger side is a fuse box. So you have the outside fuse box. Let me actually show you guys that real quick. You could tie in up here if you wanted to. This is what Ford calls the power distribution box, is right under this cover. But I chose to go on the inside here. This is an ignition switched power source, and I will show you footage that we filmed as we were doing this install. I guess Scott was told it was 2 hours, and we got it done pretty close to maybe like 2 days, not 2 hours. Oops, I didn't get you on film it right.
Sounds about accurate.
No,
That's about
but
accurate.
it does take way more than 2.5 hours to put this whole thing together. If you do it the way we did it with the wiring and everything else, maybe if you just slap it up under the bed, you can get it done pretty quick. But anyhow, here's how we did it. This power distribution box inside the cab, there's a cover here in the footwell. Right there's our fuse box. Now you can see our fuse buddies jumped out. This is the micro 3 fuse buddy. Here's the lead, comes off the end. And what you need to be aware is which side the power is coming out. I've got both fuses in there. It's hard to see, but I have the original 7.5 amp, and then we're going with a 5 amp because the solenoid or relay is only going to draw 1 or 2 amps. But anyhow, this is fuse 20. If you're looking for this, 20 and 21. This side's 20, 21, because remember, a micro 3 has 2 circuits built into it. So I have this test lead right here connected to a ground, which is right up here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a stud right there. So if you want to test your circuitry, you can do it that way. Here's our lead. Now, right now, when I put this in here, we should not, with the truck off, that's just the key in, we should not see the light. All right, Scott, go ahead, turn on the ignition. There you go. Now, turn it off. Okay, on again. There you go, off. Okay, so what this, after that chime quits, what this is doing is basically only powering the relay back there for the compressor when the ignition is on, or if the truck was running right now. So on or run, this is energized, and that's exactly what we need. All right, let's check the decibel reading. You know, the truck's not running. I'm gonna stop talking. We'll see where it neutralizes at, and we'll just do the stock horn. So that was about 107. Now we're going to do the train horn demo test, but I'm getting my air muffs on for that one. This sucker's loud, I'm telling you right now. All right, hold on a sec. All right, that time we got 129 decibels.